Good evening, traveller. Tonight, I want to tell you about a knight who came to the magical forest of Whispergrove to reclaim something he believed was his, and discovered that the forest had other plans. So settle in, and let's unfold this story. There are evenings in Whispergrove when the forest seems to draw itself inward, not in retreat, not in fear, but in quiet preparation, as though the day has said all it intends to say, and the night is being given space to answer in its own time. It was during such an evening that the night came looking for me. The light had begun its slow descent through the trees, no longer falling from above so much as slipping sideways between trunks and branches. Shadows lengthened and softened at their edges, overlapping one another until it became difficult to tell where one ended and the next began. The air held the faint coolness that arrives just before dusk, carrying with it the scent of leaf mould, stone, and the last warmth stored in bark and soil. I was walking the lower path near the western ridge, a route I often take when the day grows tired. It is a forgiving trail, wide enough to wander without attention, and familiar enough that my feet rarely need instruction. In the evenings I find it listens particularly well. I had paused near a stand of ferns to set a small bundle at the base of a tree, dried roots bound in twine, left for creatures who know how to find such things, when I heard the horse. Its approach was unhurried, the sound of hooves muted by the soft ground. Not the sharp rhythm of pursuit, nor the careless noise of someone unfamiliar with the forest, but the measured cadence of an animal that had learned to place its steps where they would be received. I turned slightly, resting my weight against my staff, and waited. The horse emerged first, broad-shouldered and steady, its coat darkened by travel and evening light alike. A knight followed at its side, walking rather than riding, one hand loosely holding the reins. His armour was practical, worn smooth in places where use had polished it over time. No sigils adorned it, no bright markings to announce allegiance or rank. This was not a man seeking to be seen. When he noticed me, he stopped at once. He did not reach for his sword. He did not straighten in alarm. He simply inclined his head, as one does when encountering someone unexpectedly, but without hostility. "I was told you walk these paths," he said. His voice was calm, though there was an edge to it, not fear, but the careful restraint of someone who has already tried and failed to solve a problem alone. "I walk many of them," I replied. "This one happens to be beneath my feet tonight." He considered this, then nodded. "Then perhaps I have found the right person." The forest settled around us, the sounds of the day continuing their gradual withdrawal. Somewhere deeper among the trees a bird called once, then fell silent. The light dimmed another degree, the air growing more still. "My name is not important," the knight said, "but I was told that if something is misplaced in Whispergrove, you may know where to look." "Misplaced things are often exactly where they intend to be," I said. "It is people who have trouble finding them." A faint smile touched his mouth at that, though it did not last. "Then I hope it intends to be found," he said, "because it does not belong to the forest." "What is it you are missing?" I asked. He hesitated, then reached beneath the edge of his breastplate. From within he withdrew a small leather cord, its end empty. He held it out to me without explanation. "A ring," he said, "plain, unmarked. It was here when I entered the wood. When I reached the ridge beyond the stream, it was gone." I studied the cord. The leather was worn but cared for, softened by long contact with skin. This was not an ornament carried thoughtlessly. "You returned to look for it," I said. I did, he replied, twice. And did you find where it fell? I found where it stopped, he said, but not where it went. That distinction mattered. I nodded once. Show me. We walked together, the night matching his pace to mine without comment. His horse followed easily, ears turning now and then to catch sounds that never quite resolved into anything demanding attention. The forest made room for us, not widening its paths, but not narrowing them either. As we moved deeper, evening took firmer hold. The last of the sun slipped away, leaving behind a pale, lingering glow caught in the higher leaves. The ground darkened beneath our feet, and the air cooled enough that breath became faintly visible when exhaled slowly. "This is where I noticed it was missing," the knight said at last, stopping near a shallow rise where the path curved inward. I felt the cord shift. When I looked, it was gone. I knelt, running my fingers lightly over the ground. Moss, leaf litter, small stones warmed earlier by the sun, and now giving that warmth back reluctantly. There were signs of passage, boot prints, the heavier mark of hooves, but nothing disturbed enough to suggest a struggle or sudden loss. "You did not drop it," I said. "No," he agreed, "it was taken." The forest did not deny this. We continued on, moving slowly now, attention tuned not to speed but to subtle absence. In Whispergrove, what is missing often leaves a clearer trail than what remains. It was the horse who found it first. The animal stopped without instruction, lowering its head toward a cluster of roots exposed near the base of a stone outcropping, rememberable more for its shape than its size. The knight stepped closer, following the horse's gaze. There, nestled against the cool curve of stone, lay the ring, unbroken, untarnished, exactly as it had been. Relief crossed the knight's face, brief and genuine. He took a step forward, then stopped. Something else occupied the space now. At first it was only the shape, a broad coil of shadow and scale that had not been there moments before, or perhaps had been and simply gone unnoticed. Then came the warmth, radiating outward in slow, steady pulses. Then the sound, a deep rhythmic breathing that seemed to rise from the earth itself. A dragon slept there. It was not large in the way songs describe such creatures, but it was vast enough to command the clearing. Its body curved protectively around the stone, tail wrapped close, wings folded with careful precision. One forelimb rested near the ring, claws half curled, not grasping but undeniably present. The dragon's hide was the color of old embers, darkened and matte, catching the faintest glimmer of remaining light along the ridges of its scales. Each breath it drew warmed the air, carrying with it the scent of smoke long cooled and something mineral like rain on heated rock. The night froze. It did not snarl. It did not stir. It slept. Slowly, carefully, the night leaned closer to me. "It wasn't here before," he whispered. "It was," I said quietly. "You simply had no reason to see it." His gaze flicked back to the ring, so close now that he could have reached it in a single step. His fingers tightened at his side. "I can take it," he said, "if I am careful." He shifted his weight forward, placing one foot with deliberate care. The ground gave slightly beneath his boot. The dragon's breathing changed, not faster, not louder, just aware. One eye, still closed, moved beneath its lid. A low sound rumbled in its chest, not a growl but the deep murmur of a creature adjusting within sleep. I reached out and caught the knight's wrist. "Not yet," I said. He looked at me, tension held carefully behind his eyes. "It is mine." "And it will remain so," I replied, "if we do not wake the one who is borrowing it." He exhaled slowly, drawing back. "Then what do we do?" I studied the dragon, noting the slow rise and fall of its flank, the relaxed curl of its claws, the way its tail rested with unconscious care around the stone. "It is not guarding," I said. "It is resting." "That makes little difference if it wakes," he said. "On the contrary," I replied, "it makes all the difference." I released his wrist and turned away, already scanning the surrounding forest. "Stay here," I said, "and do not move." The knight hesitated, then nodded. I walked back along the path we had taken, listening not for danger, but for invitation. Evening had settled fully now, the forest alive with the quiet activity of creatures preparing for night. Somewhere nearby, something sweet had ripened enough to be noticed. I intended to find it. The forest receives an evening search differently than one conducted by day. Light no longer insists on showing everything at once. Instead, it allows details to emerge gradually, offering them only when approached with patience. I moved away from the clearing without haste, letting my steps remain unremarkable. Creatures that sleep lightly notice urgency long before they notice sound, and I had no wish to be noticed at all. The path curved gently downward, following a shallow hollow where the soil stayed warm longer than most places. Such pockets often hold what is needed when night begins to settle in earnest. It did not take long to find signs. The air grew faintly sweet, threaded with a scent that did not belong to leaves or bark. I followed it past a fallen log and into a small depression where the ground dipped enough to collect runoff after rain. There, nestled among low plants whose broad leaves trapped the last of the day's warmth, I found a cluster of fire fruit. They are not common, but they are known to Whispergrove. Round and heavy in the hand, their skin dull red and faintly warm to the touch, they carry a slow-burning sweetness that lingers long after they are eaten. Deer avoid them, birds ignore them. Larger creatures, however, remember them well. I knelt and gathered several, careful not to take too many. Balance is not maintained by excess. When I rose, I wrapped them loosely in a scrap of cloth and began my return. The forest had grown quieter in my absence, as it often does when something important is unfolding elsewhere. The hush was not empty, it was attentive. When I reached the clearing again, nothing had changed. The dragon still slept, coiled protectively around the stone. Its breathing remained slow and steady, the warmth it gave off pooling gently around it like an unseen hearth. The knight stood where I had left him, unmoving, his attention fixed on the ring as though willing it to lift itself and return. He glanced at me as I approached, relief flickering briefly across his face. "You were not long," he murmured. "I found what I was looking for," I replied. I did not approach the dragon directly. Instead, I knelt several paces away and placed one of the fruits on the ground, letting it rest there openly. The scent drifted outward at once, subtle but unmistakable. The dragon's breathing shifted. A low, contented sound resonated through its chest, barely audible but felt all the same. One wing flexed slightly, the membrane stretching and settling again. Still, its eyes remained closed. I placed another fruit beside the first, then another, forming a small offering rather than a trail. There was no need to lure, only to suggest. Slowly the dragon stirred, its head lifted a fraction, nostrils flaring as it drew in the air. One eye opened, revealing a deep molten gold, unfocused with sleep. It blinked once, then again, awareness returning in gentle increments. It did not rise. Instead, it shifted its weight, stretching forward just enough to bring its head closer to the offering. A long tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Another quiet rumble sounded, this one distinctly pleased. I waited, Patience is not something one demonstrates to be admired. It is something offered so that others may decide what to do with it. The dragon lowered its head and nudged the fruit gently, testing it before taking it into its mouth. The sound it made then was unmistakable, a low, satisfied hum that vibrated through the ground and into my bones. As it ate, its body loosened. The tight coil around the stone relaxed, tail uncurving slightly, one forelimb shifting away from where it had rested. The ring was no longer encircled. I did not look at the night. I did not need to. When the dragon's attention settled fully on the food, I lifted my hand and made a small, open gesture toward the stone. The knight moved. He stepped forward with care, each footfall deliberate, his breathing slow and controlled. He did not rush. He did not crouch. He simply walked, as one does when crossing a space that belongs temporarily to someone else. The dragon noticed him. Its eye followed his movement, alert now but not alarmed. Its head tilted slightly, assessing. Another low sound rumbled in its chest, neither warning nor welcome, only acknowledgement. The knight paused, placing one hand flat against his chest in a small, instinctive gesture of respect. Then he reached down and lifted the ring. Nothing happened, no roar, no sudden movement. The dragon watched, chewing thoughtfully, its gaze calm. The knight straightened, the ring closed securely in his palm. He stepped back slowly, retreating to where I stood. Only then did the dragon settle again, curling its body more comfortably around the warmth of the stone and the last of the fruit. Its eye closed once more, and its breathing resumed its earlier rhythm. The clearing exhaled. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then the knight let out a breath he had clearly been holding for some time. He opened his hand and looked at the ring, turning it once between his fingers as though to reassure himself of its solidity. "I thought it had chosen the dragon," he said quietly. "Perhaps it did," I replied, "for a while." He frowned slightly. "Why?" I considered the question before answering. "Some creatures are drawn to things that have been worn close to the heart," I said. "They recognize the warmth of them." The knight nodded slowly. He slipped the ring back onto its cord and secured it beneath his armor once more. This time his hand lingered there for a moment, palm pressed lightly against his chest. "I am grateful," he said. "I would not have known what to do." "You knew what not to do," I replied. "That is often enough." We did not linger longer than necessary. The dragon slept on, content and undisturbed. The forest resumed its quiet evening rhythms, the brief tension dissolving as though it had never been. We walked back the way we had come, the path seeming clearer now, less inclined to wander. Night had settled fully, stars beginning to appear in the open spaces between branches. The air cooled steadily, carrying with it the deep, clean scent of earth at rest. After a time the knight spoke again. "You did not fear it," he said. "The dragon." "No," I replied. "I respected it." He considered this. "Is there a difference?" "There is all the difference," I said. He smiled faintly, not in amusement but in understanding. When we reached the edge of Whispergrove, the forest shifted subtly, releasing us without ceremony. The path widened, the trees stepping back just enough to signal that our business there was finished. The knight stopped and turned to face me. "I will remember this," he said, "not only what you did, but how." "That is the part worth keeping," I said. He inclined his head once more, then mounted his horse. As he rode away, the sound of hooves gradually softened, blending into the night until it became indistinguishable from the forest's own quiet movements. I remained where I was for a time, listening. Somewhere behind me, deeper within Whispergrove, a dragon slept, warm and undisturbed. The ring had returned to where it belonged. Nothing had been taken, nothing had been lost. The forest settled, satisfied. At last I turned and began my own walk home, letting the night decide how far I would go. There are things in Whispergrove that are not guarded by force. They are kept by trust, returned by patience, and found only when one is willing to ask for help in the quiet way. Those are the things worth seeking. The embers glow low and steady beside you now, their warmth quiet and unhurried. The forest rests easily beyond the reach of the firelight. Nothing stirs without purpose. Nothing is asked to move before it is ready. That is the story of the knight who came to Whispergrove, seeking what he believed he had lost, and found it waiting, not guarded by force, but held in care. I'll remain here a while longer, tending the fire, listening as the forest settles back into its evening rhythms. All is as it should be. You are safe to rest. Good night, my friend. May what you seek be returned to you gently. And may you remember that some things come back to us only when we ask quietly enough.